Let me read to you a passage from the 6th chapter of St. John's Gospel, verses 35 to 40. It's the Gospel for Wednesday of the 3rd week of Eastertide, year A. St. John writes, "And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will not hunger, and he who believes in me will never thirst. But I told you that though you have seen me, you do not believe. All that the Father gives to me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will not cast out, because I came down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Now this is the will of the Father who sent me, that of all that he has given to me I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again on the last day. This is the will of my Father who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have life everlasting, and I will raise him up on the last day." That's from John chapter 6, verses 35 to 40. And what does it suggest to us? Well, you know, when Buddha set out on his search for the key to happiness, he was embarking on a quest which would affect millions of Asians after him. He found, as he thought, the answer and passed it on to his disciples. They took it up, made it their own, and gradually a great movement of thought formed. Buddha forged a path, a way, and great numbers followed along that way. But of course, he did not point to himself as the way, except as the example for all of what it means to follow that way. Buddhism, as we might call it, or the quest for nirvana, is greater than Buddha, and Buddha would have been the first to admit it. It was the same with Zarathustra. He had a great doctrine and pointed beyond himself to what that doctrine referred to. So too with Muhammad. No Muslim considers Muhammad himself as the object of their religion and as being himself the source of heavenly blessings. He is, so Islam thinks, the messenger. As such, he points, he believed and taught, to Allah as the source and object of all. Oh, but it is so very different with Jesus Christ. He came with a doctrine, and assent to that doctrine is crucial for salvation. He who believes will be saved, and he who refuses to believe will be condemned, we read our Lord saying. But the doctrine points to himself. We have, in the person of Jesus Christ, at once the most profound humility and the most exalted of personal claims. In our Gospel today, our Lord refers without ambiguity to himself, not merely to his doctrine, but to his very self as the bread of life. I am the bread of life. He who comes to me, will not hunger, and he who believes in me will never thirst. This is why Christianity holds up not just the doctrine of Christ, not just his body of teaching and his revelation, but his very self for the world's contemplation. He himself is the love of the Christian religion, and the Church bears witness to his very person to the world. The authentic Christian is one who is constantly nourished not only by Christ's doctrine, but by his very person, and the love for his person. He, and not only his message, is the bread of life. And so it is that in our Gospel passage today that I read, our Lord laments the lack of faith in him. I told you, he says, that though you have seen me, you do not believe. Salvation is to be found in him. Now this is the will of the Father who sent me, he says, that of all that he has given to me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again on the last day. This is the will of my Father who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have life everlasting, and I will raise him up on the last day. If we see the Son and believe in him, life everlasting will be ours, and he, the Son of God and Son of Man, will raise us up in our flesh on the last day. Life will be ours if, seeing him, we believe in him. Now, this seeing of the Son ought be a central part of a daily life of a Christian. It issues in belief. What do I mean by this? Well, you know, in his most important philosophical work, entitled The Grammar of Assent, Cardinal Newman asked if there is a way in which we may be said to enter with a personal knowledge into the thought of God. How can our knowledge of Christ and of God be real and personal and not just notional? He asked, can I believe as if I saw? Without embarking on a discussion of his theory of real assent, in his answer, Newman stresses the exercise of the religious imagination. Now, what this means is that if we wish to grow in a genuine and personal belief in the person of Jesus, then we must, day by day, look on Jesus, as it were. Everyone who sees the Son and believes in him, our Lord tells us, will have life everlasting. So, throughout our lives, we must be looking on the Son and believing in him. How do we do this? We look on him in our daily prayer, in our prayerful contemplation of his person as portrayed in the Gospels. We must be with him in mind and heart, learning to look on him and love him and believe in him totally. The Christian life entails a great commitment to personal prayer, prayerful meditation on the person of Jesus, a prayer characterized by a gazing on Christ with faith, hope and love, using our religious imagination in our reading of the Scriptures, and as a result of this gaze in spirit, accepting totally his teaching and putting it every day into practice. So let us resolve to look on the person of Jesus, the Son of God and the Son of Man, to see him, to believe in him with all our mind, heart and soul. This sight of Christ is a seeing in faith and prayer. It is not sight with the eyes, of course, but sight with the mind and heart. A vivid belief, nourished by daily prayer and the reading of the Scriptures, and of all that truly and reliably speaks of the living, unseen Jesus. In this way, we continue to look on Jesus and grow in a genuine faith in him. If we do this, he will raise us up